What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nerd Level Rising. My name's Jake, and this is going to be a little bit of a different video from what I've done before. So I always talk about how I like all kinds of nerdy stuff, right? And most of my videos have been very book focused, and that's definitely my biggest thing. But there's other stuff I like too. And today I want to talk a little bit more about anime, and I've been mentioning these things in some of my updates, right? Sort of my mid-month and my end-of-month updates, just what I'm watching and why I like it and that sort of thing. But this, I want it to be a little bit more about the new season that's coming up. So that's what I'm going to talk about here today. And if anyone's not aware, the way that anime usually works is we have seasons. There's 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter, right? Just like just your normal seasons. And it works in these sort of 13-ish on average week chunks, where you'll have a bunch of new shows starting all at the same time. They'll run through, one episode airs every week, and then those all end right when the next big chunk starts, the next big season starts. And the fall anime season just has been getting rolling here over the last week or two. And I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about what I'm going to be checking out and what I'm going to be watching, and we'll see what we get into, right? So that's what we're doing. So let's jump in. And I'm doing this now because I thought it would be good to give it a week or two so that I have a chance to kind of survey the landscape, see what's going on, see what I'm interested in watching, what's not so good, what is good, that sort of thing. So I can talk a little bit more in depth about like the things that I'm actually going to stick with. So number 1 on this list, and this is actually one that I'm not going to stick with, unfortunately, and that is Re:Zero Season 3. And Re:Zero is a show that I got super into when it first came out. This is an isekai, so this is, sucked into another world, and you're sort of learn. It's kind of similar to Lit RPG for the book people, right? That you're pulled into a different world, and you have to just sort of experience this thing and learn what's going on. And there's usually like some video game elements, but not always. And this one's not really video game stuff. It's just sort of a more or less generic fantasy world. But what's really interesting about Re:Zero is the idea is that every time he dies, he sort of respawns, reincarnates, or starts over from the last kind of checkpoint, right? So he gets these various sort of checkpoints to where he won't rewind past that, and these update sort of periodically as he gets through what he's trying to do. And the first season was so interesting because this happened quite a bit, and there was a crazy amount of just these mind-blowing twists that just kept happening left and right. It was crazy, and it sucked me in. I loved it so much. And then season 2 was just different, right? I don't know. It really lost me. I felt like it got convoluted, and it got away from the stuff that I liked. It got away from all those cool plot twists. It got away from as much action, and it started to build the world out more, which is really cool. And it slowed down and gave us some character moments, and I liked those things, but it just wasn't. It didn't feel special to me anymore. So I really kind of. I finished season 2, but it was and it's now been a while since that came out. Season 3 is just starting out, so I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. And the first episode of season 3 was about an hour and a half long. So, and this happens sometimes. Usually anime is, you're in that 22 to 25 minute range per episode, usually. But every once in a while, a show will start, and they'll start with what's essentially a movie, right? It's like a hour and a half long episode, which can be really, really cool if you really dig the show. With this, I got about 15 minutes into it, and I was just like, I'm done, dude, I'm out. So it just didn't grab me at all, which is disappointing because I really loved that first season. But I don't think I'm going to be continuing with Re:Zero. I'm sure there's going to be some, if anyone's watching this as a big anime fan, this is a very, very popular show, so I might get yelled at for this one, but it lost me, man. I'm sorry. So that's kind of the downside, and the other downside is the Uzumaki adaptation that has been made. If I remember correctly, it's a 4-part TV special. And the thing with this, obviously, is an adaptation of Junji Ito's legendary horror manga of Uzumaki. And I'm really interested. I haven't read the manga. I'd be really interested to read it. And with this coming out, I was like, ooh, let me watch that. That sounds really cool. And by all accounts, I have not seen it yet, but by all accounts, first episode was incredible. And then the second episode took a unbelievable nosedive in quality, which is very sad. But it does happen a lot in the anime industry, right? There's a lot of very, very tight time deadlines and a lot of really tight money financial constraints. So sometimes you have this where there's a lot of cost cutting that has to happen just to get the thing out, right? Sometimes it's a struggle to even put these things out, and a lot of times shows get delayed or they go on hiatus because of these reasons and because of various other reasons as well. But so this isn't unheard of. This isn't necessarily unusual, unfortunately, but it is a bummer and it puts a big damper on me watching this one. So I don't know if I'm going to wind up watching it. I definitely do want to read the manga, but I might leave that there. But with that, we're going to put the negativity aside and we're going to focus more on the positive stuff, the things that I'm very excited about. Number one on that list of what I'm excited about is Blue Lock Season 2. And Blue Lock was a show that came out. When did that first season come out? It was probably, I don't know, 2 years ago now, something like that, a year and a half, somewhere in there. It's been a little bit. And I am a big sports anime fan. I love Haikyuu. Haikyuu is one of my favorite things ever, regardless of genre, regardless of medium, whatever. It's one of my favorite stories ever. It's a volleyball show for anyone who has not seen it. I love Kuroko no Basket. I'm a big basketball fan. I love that show, right? I love these like really just hyped up, awesome kind of shonen style sports shows. And especially when they get into more character-driven things, right? You really dig into the character relationships. You really dig into the motivations and the backstories and the what's driving each of these different people as they use the sport as the vehicle for interacting with others and learning about themselves and learning about life and progressing as a person. I love that stuff. And it brings back a lot of memories for me of playing sports growing up. And Blue Lock was sort of the newer one when the first season came out. There was a soccer show, and there's been various other soccer shows. But this one, I was just like, yeah, let me try it, right? I like these sports shows. Let me give this a shot. And wow, dude, it's very similar to Kuroko no Basket in that it goes way over the top. It's not the most realistic sports show you're gonna see, right? There's a lot of people that they each character, each player sort of has their own little sort of special ability in a way. It's not really magic. It's not, anything so over the top as that, but it certainly is an exaggeration of normal human athletic abilities, right? Somebody will be super, super fast, or somebody has just amazing spatial awareness and they can just always put themselves in the right spot. Or somebody it's almost like they can see the future. They know just where to kick the ball to pass it to somebody who's going to be there and go be able to score. Or somebody who can just do these amazing body control as they jump into the air and contort themselves and kick the ball around three defenders and it scores the goal. There's a lot of really cool stuff like that that certainly is exaggerated, but it's not, completely alien superpower type of stuff. But there's a lot of cool behind the scenes stuff going on too, right? The whole idea is it's called Blue Lock. It's sort of this arena type of, the first word that came to mind was prison. It's not really not a prison, but it's where this agency has gathered a bunch of the best soccer players around that are all strikers, for anyone who's familiar with soccer, which if you're familiar with soccer, you'll know that that's kind of weird that you're combining a team out of all strikers. But they brought all these people together and they're trying to do what's basically a battle royale at the end of the day with all these different types of challenges, different types of games, different types of thing that's going on, different team ups, all kinds of stuff, to eventually whittle it down to a team, the best team that they can find, to go up against the traditional Japan soccer team, because they feel like they can really revolutionize how soccer is played in the country. And that's sort of the background premise. So we see a lot of that stuff. We see some government interaction. We see these deeper, darker motivations that are kind of driving the story as a whole. But then we zoom in on all the players and we see their stories and their relationships together and how they're navigating all those things. And some people grow closer together. Some people are pulled further apart. Some people are growing and learning as they go. Other people kind of get broken down and fall to the wayside. And there's a lot of things about dreams and hope and hard work and sticking with it and learning to leverage your strengths and learning to develop your weaknesses and how to insert yourself into a situation and show what you're able to do and get recognized for that. And there's so much really cool stuff. So I was so excited for season 2. It's awesome. I'm caught up. There's only 2 episodes out so far. It's awesome. If you are interested in that stuff that I just talked about, please check out the show. It's so cool. The only downside was they had a episode towards the end of season 1 with some different it wasn't all Japanese voice actors, right? There were some different languages in there that just always sounds weird when you have a Japanese voice actor who is speaking speaking English or something else, and it's not super fluent, and it just kind of throws you off a little bit. That was a little bit funky, but other than that, it's been amazing. So that's Blue Lock. Another one, Dan to Dan. I don't really know how to say it. I'm going to say Dan to Dan. But okay, dude, this show this has been on my radar since it got announced because I know that the mangas are super popular. And the best way that I can describe this anime is completely and utterly unhinged. This seems like a show where just literally anything can happen. So, we're 2 episodes in. So far, we've seen UFOs and aliens. We've seen occult and ghosts and demons. We've seen people transforming into other things. We've seen some sort of like spiritual occult powers being used. We've seen a lot of interesting things with just the production of the anime itself, right? There's a lot of the art style took me a second to get used to. It's a little bit unconventional, but the animation is incredible and it's really engaging. It's very eye-catching, this show. And the colors are very vibrant until they're not purposefully, which is very interesting and a really unique choice that the animators are making. And there's some weird, like, dirty jokes in here that are just funny. And I can already tell there's going to be some very intriguing character backstory stuff with like some family relationships. And one of our main characters is somebody who's sort of an outcast and has been ostracized. And that's always, I'm a sucker for that story always, right? Just seeing them actually make friends with people and seeing their character development, which I assume is going to happen. The transformation that we see with one of the characters is entertaining, to say the least. And it's just, I don't know, dude. I barely even know what to say other than just that stuff. But the music is great. The opening theme song is such a banger. Definitely, at least go Google the opening theme song and check this one out. If this is somehow gotten by your radar, if you're an anime fan, what this calls to mind for me is things like Dorohedoro, where it's just craziness, weird stuff happening. Even JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right? Where just anything can happen. That's what this feels like. It feels like anything can happen. So very excited to continue with Dan to Dan. Next on my list is a shonen that was one of the earlier shows that I watched as a growing up anime fan. This is Blue Exorcist. And Blue Exorcist was for a long time upsetting because we had this first season that was just unbelievable and a second season that was completely unrelated to the first season. It was just sort of this weird side story, and that was all we had. And the cliffhanger at the end of season 1 was just maddening. I had to know more, and we didn't have more. I could have just gone and read the manga, but I didn't. But I really wanted to see more, and now just earlier this year we had season 3 finally come out, and it was awesome. Currently now season 4 is out so far. It's really good. I think it's going to be awesome. We have season 5 coming out very, very soon, right? So it seems like they're really getting after this now, which is so exciting. But what is Blue Exorcist about? This is the story of Rin Okumura, who is the son of Satan, and he has these special powers that he doesn't understand at first, and he's raised by a priest, and he has a brother. And it's sort of this story of him sort of discovering and understanding his powers and his past, and his relationship with his brother is very, very important, with his father is very important. And we eventually move into this thing where he has to join society, and there's this school where they are learning to become exorcists, where they will go and exorcise and get rid of demons that plague the world. And they're trying to stop the opening of Gehenna, the demon world, so that more demons don't come in to the normal world. They're trying to protect everybody, right? Sort of at a basic level. And there are these higher level demons. There's all these like really high level threats that are looming, and we know they're going to come eventually because that's how these shows always go. But the process of him learning to trust himself, importantly, learning to trust his friends learning to trust him as they learn more about him and what's going on. And there's all kinds of cool stuff. We see a lot of things with the school and what he's learning, and it's awesome and it's funny. So I was so excited to see season 3 finally come out after literally 10 or 11 years. And it was just awesome. We got a really, really great story about one of the people who was previously just a side character. And we saw so much about her. I'm blanking on her name right now, but so much about her. We got a lot of cool traditional Japanese stuff with like the nine-tailed fox and things like that I always love. And now we get into season 4, building off of where season 3 was, and pulling in a bunch of stuff from that initial season 1, and we're finally getting some movement on where season 1 ended that I mentioned, that crazy cliffhanger. Man, I'm so excited. I love Blue Exorcist. It's so cool. I love the themes that are being explored here. I love anytime you get into stuff that's more like occult, that's always interesting. However you feel about those things, in the real world, at least for me, when I watch something that's depicted like that in an anime or a TV show or a book or whatever, it's always at the very least very interesting and really captures my attention. So that's been great, and first couple episodes off to a good start. We're off to a really interesting premise that we're kind of starting off here, and I'm going to keep it very vague because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But 2 big thumbs up on that. We have next the new season 2 of the Rurouni Kenshin remake, and this is the Kyoto Disturbance arc. And to say that I'm excited for this is a massive understatement. So literally, one of my earliest memories is seeing the original Rurouni Kenshin on Toonami as a kid. And I didn't understand anything about it, but I was like, oh, samurais, that's really cool, right? And, I remember seeing just scattered bits and pieces of it and really liking it, and it really stuck with me for whatever reason. And then as I got older, I went back and rewatched it and saw the whole thing through, all the episodes, not just random scattered ones. And it was fantastic, right? Like, is there some slow parts of it? Yes. Is the last season as good as the early ones? No, right? The first 2 seasons are by far my favorite, but it's so great. And Rurouni Kenshin is the story of Kenshin Himura, who is sort of this, he's a wanderer, right? He's a Rurouni, and he is sort of going in, he gets to Tokyo, and he meets Kaoru, and he meets, this girl that he starts to form some sort of relationship with, and meets other friends along the way. We got Sano, we got what's the Yahiko kid, and we found family, right? We get a lot of found family with Rurouni Kenshin, and there's a lot of, this is a very mature show for the most part, right? With what's going on, so we're seeing a lot of things with the Japanese government, and this is a period piece, right? This is like I forget what era it is, but it's right when they essentially outlawed carrying a sword with you all the time and being a samurai and just being out there with it, right? And we're starting to see policemen with guns that are kind of out patrolling a little bit, and we're seeing that kind of stuff. We're seeing that transition. That's really where this is taking place. And so there's a lot of interesting things with that, with the government and how it's clashing with this sort of changing of the guard and this changing of the time, changing of the times, and how culture is. It's a cultural shift that's happening, and we see these groups, these sort of military groups that relied on the old ways that are kind of being phased out, but they don't want to be phased out, and that they're still relied on by some. And there's a lot of really, really interesting political stuff going on. Like there's so much cool stuff. But at the end of the day, Kenshin is a badass samurai with a cool sword, and what's interesting about him is his style, his sword style. You'll see this a lot in this show. People have their own sword style. Which makes sense, right? Period piece Japan. And what's cool about him is he uses what's called a reverse blade sword, which is the blade is on the wrong side. So he does this on purpose because he doesn't actually want to kill anybody. He can hurt people, that's okay. He'll stop them, but he always errs on the side of peace. He always tries to diffuse things. He always tries to avoid conflict whenever he can, but when he has to, he can do it. But he makes sure that he doesn't kill people. It's very, very important to him for reasons you will see if you watch the show. I don't want to spoil anything. But we do get to see some internal conflict with him around that idea. And the first season of this remake was awesome. And being able to see, just these scenes that I remember from being a kid and getting to see it now with this updated art style, updated animation is just awesome. And they kept so much of the art style intact. That's the cool thing. They didn't completely change it and make it look super, super modern. It's just a modern take on that traditional 90s, early 2000s anime style. That's, to me, that's the golden age of how anime looks. Like, that's my favorite art style in general, that era. But so they kept so much of that intact, but just updated it a little bit, made the animation smoother, and changed the pacing of the story a little bit, and did some things like that. But for season 1 was awesome, and season 2 is, when we get to go to Kyoto and we get to see what's going on with Shishio. Oh man, this was my favorite part of the anime, of the story as a whole, and I'm so excited to see this remade in this new form. So, by the way, the Rurouni Kenshin live action movies are to date the only live action anime adaptations I have seen that are actually really good. So, there you go. Maybe you can go check those out. I actually think I have a couple of them on Blu-ray, if I remember right, back when I used to buy Blu-rays now and then. But we had that. To round out my list, I have not watched this yet because I am actually going to wait for the English dub on this one, and that is Dragon Ball Daima. Dragon Ball is something that I have a Dragon Ball tattooed on my arm up here, right? Like, it means a whole lot to me. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z, and like, I have so much nostalgia for that. Dragon Ball GT, I have a lot of nostalgia for that. I am a defender of Dragon Ball GT. Some people are going to yell at me. That's okay. Dragon Ball Super, I thought, to be honest, was wildly overrated, if I'm being completely honest. I liked certain parts about it, but I was just like, man, parts of it hurt me as a big fan of the property. Original Dragon Ball, I liked it. I didn't grow up watching that. I need to go back and rewatch. I've seen bits and pieces. I actually haven't seen the whole thing. So I need to go back and rewatch all of that. But Dragon Ball Daima is this new series that we're getting that was it's weird for me because Dragon Ball Super, this most recent series that we got, was not my favorite, so I'm a little bit trepidatious coming into another thing. And the other piece of this is we're for whatever reason, I don't know, I'm sure it's explained in the show, de-aging the characters. They're all kind of child age, that we're seeing, which is really not my favorite. I mentioned Dragon Ball GT, and that one, Goku gets reverted back to a child, and I don't like that very much. That's like one of the main things I don't like about that series. So I'm hesitant for those reasons, but the reason that I will absolutely check this out is, one, I will at least try anything that Dragon Ball makes, just because of what Dragon Ball Z in particular means to me, and the impact that had on my life. And then the other piece is that this is the last project that the original creator worked on. And to me, that makes it super worth checking out, just for that simple fact. So I will absolutely check this out. I'm going to wait for the English dub because, like a lot of people, I prefer the English dub for Dragon Ball stuff, just because the sub is great in a lot of ways, but the voice actors that they choose for some characters doesn't really suit the vibe of the character and what's going on, in my opinion. It's classic. They're legendary in Japan. I respect it greatly, right? Nobody come at me. But I'm just like, man, the fact that Goku for so long was voiced by like a 70 or 80-year-old woman, and when he screams because he's like super amped up and he's fighting and he's trying to save the world, and his scream is like this high-pitched like shriek rather than like a much more the English dub, Sean Schemmel, it's very, very different, and it feels very different as a viewer, and I just really greatly prefer that. It's also probably because I grew up with that, right, rather than the subtitles. So I will check that one out. But anyway, that's what I'm checking out this season, the fall 2024 anime season. There's a bunch of stuff that I didn't mention because of a couple reasons. One, I know there's some really great stuff, like Shangri-La Frontier, is that what it's called? The next season's coming out. I didn't see season 1 yet, so I'm not going to watch that. So there's some stuff, some big shows that I just didn't see earlier seasons of yet. So obviously I'm not going to watch the sequels yet. And the other thing is my time is limited, dude. I can only watch so much stuff, so I have to pick the heavy hitters that speak to me the most. And as I go through the season, as I hear rumors about, man, this show was amazing, or man, you missed out because you didn't watch this, or whatever, I'll add those to my list, and eventually we'll get around to them. But we got to be choosy with how much of the stuff that I'm watching, because time is of the essence these days. So, but there we go. That's what I got. So thank you. If you watched this whole thing, thank you for sticking with me. My first anime only video. Hopefully this was at least interesting. And for my book people watching this, like, dude, hopefully I did a reasonable job of explaining these shows and why I like them, and the story that's there. It's not just, anime gets a bad rap sometimes of being very shallow and being very simplistic, and it's just about guys fighting and powering up or whatever, right? But almost always, not always, but almost always, it's not like that. It's so much deeper, and there's so much nuance and theme and things to be explored in these stories, and it's so much fun, dude. It's so awesome. So I'm gonna see if I can convert some of you book people to try some anime as we go through this wonderful NLR journey together. So thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please give me one of those thumbs up. I always like to see those. Please leave me comments. I say this every video, but that's my favorite thing, is just interacting with you guys in the comments. It's so much fun. Please, if you like the video, if you like what I'm doing here, you want to see these videos more, please subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. I'm not going to lie, man. It's for two reasons. I mean, the biggest thing is the more the channel grows, the more people I can interact with. I get to see more comments. I get to talk to more people. I get to build friendships with more people. It's awesome. I get to interact with other channels more because people, my channel's more visible. People see it. People hear about it. And that's just incredible. And the relationships, I've said this again a million times, the relationships I've built already on BookTube has just been incredible. So there's that first and foremost. But also just, it's just cool. I'm a goal-driven person. I like seeing that number go up. It's just cool, and it's gratifying, and it helps to, I would do this even if I still had 20 subscribers right now. I would still be doing this just because it's fun. But I'm not gonna lie, seeing the number go up is motivating and gratifying and validating, and it's just, I don't know, it's cool, right? It's cool. And hey, man, we're getting closer and closer to 1,000. And that, which is unbelievable. I would never in a million years have thought that I would say that, already here 2 months into having my channel. But hey, I don't know. You guys are awesome, and you seem to like what I'm doing here, at least enough to hit the subscribe button. So we'll have to do something special for 1,000 whenever we hit that. I don't know, but that's still a little ways in the future. I'm getting ahead of myself. But for now, thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time.